Welcome inside the Pregame Center as we get ready for Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. It's a clash of Western Conference Titans, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the San Antonio Spurs, along with Josh Callaway and Cameron Johnson. I am Colby Daniels. This is something that I think the entire NBA has been counting down toward, a collision course between these two young, dominant cores, and tonight potentially begins shaping what the next decade, perhaps, of the Western Conference and maybe the NBA looks like. I cannot wait for this thing to get underway at 7:30.
Nor can I. It feels like these first two rounds, they're hard. They're the NBA playoffs. It's always going to be difficult, but they feel like warm-ups. It feels like you said, this is what all of the NBA has been waiting for this year. It is kind of a finals-like feel, even though it's the same conference. But I think this is going to be the first series where we really see the Thunder tested against an impressive San Antonio team. And I think we're going to be in for a lot of big, fun moments.
Finally. I've been waiting for this all season. I go back to the beginning of the year. It feels like these two teams have just been on a collision course quite literally for several months now. Going back to Christmas, before that NBA Cup game in Vegas, we've all been waiting for this, and certainly the last week has taken forever to get to this point, but very excited. It should be an unbelievable atmosphere, and just very, very excited to finally be here.
Well, you sort of think about the way this, I'm going to call it a rivalry. Rivalry was built this season. The Thunder are the reigning champs. They start 24-1. They're off to this record pace, obviously dealing with some injuries in the early stages of the year, but they go to the NBA Cup. San Antonio is looked at as maybe the next version of the Thunder, but I think most people felt like that was a year or two away. You get to that NBA Cup semifinal on December 13th. San Antonio, in a thriller, pulls off the 2-point win, and they advance to the NBA Cup final, and the Thunder were, I think, somewhat shocked. And then you have those two losses in 3 days on December 23rd and December 25th, and the questions begin. Does San Antonio have the Thunder's number? OKC basically has taken care of everyone in the NBA except for these San Antonio Spurs, and you start to look at the make and build of these teams. Both teams have a superstar. Both teams have young, promising superstars. Both teams have a young core, depth, good on both sides of the basketball, offense and defense. I mean, I think other than San Antonio's average age being slightly younger than the Thunder's, they're kind of carbon copies of each other. And look, I think it's kind of fitting that when Sam Presti got here to sort of build this organization, he did it coming from San Antonio and the two small markets of the NBA now, potentially positioned to dominate the league for maybe a decade.
You look at the first two first-round matchups that they've had. It's been a clear difference between, OKC's strengths help them capitalize on clear weaknesses of both of their previous opponents. This is a matchup where, like you said, they are two very similar teams, and that's going to make for a really interesting matchup to watch, especially with star-studded rosters. You're going to see a finally healthy OKC roster, which was a thing in those previous matchups as well when they had so many injuries. So it's finally like we're going to see the full potential of this series.
Yeah, Colby, you said it before. Sam Presti comes over from San Antonio. These franchises have always kind of felt kind of intertwined, right? I mean, Sam Presti kind of built this thing in the image of those Tim Duncan, Greg Popovich, Tony Parker Spurs teams. That's kind of what he tried to replicate here. And it's just the Chet Holmgren, Victor Wembanyama little one-on-one rivalry. It's just the battles that they had with Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook days in the conference finals when they went to the finals the first time. It's like these two franchises have battled. It went through a little lull. Obviously, while the Spurs rebuilt it, the Thunder had to rebuild it. And now it's all the way back. And it's very exciting. They're two franchises, and they borderline states, Oklahoma, Texas thing. It's everything you want in a rivalry. And it's budding, and it has a chance to be the biggest one maybe in all of sports for quite a while.
We might have two superstars in this series that are going to be the front runners for the MVP over the next few years as well. By the way, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning the MVP last night, now a two-time most valuable player in the NBA. 4 MVPs to this Thunder organization over the last 13 years is just mind-blowing when you think about the star power that Oklahoma City has had on its roster. But in terms of Shai in this series, there's been a lot of conversation about his regular season stats and his stats versus the San Antonio Spurs. We'll get to that. I want to start with his comments about the rust, because he mentioned it in the first series, he mentioned it against the Lakers, and then after the Game 4 win against the Lakers, he mentioned that rust has been an issue. They've had a little over a week now to get ready for this one. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander on recognizing that is a problem.
Yeah, that's been tough personally, trying to battle the rust. The rust has been taking its toll on me. But, stay in the gym, trust the work, it'll all even out.
I will say, he says that in a joking manner. I don't think it's one of those things that everybody's worried about the rust for Shea, but he is a rhythm player, and rust is going to be a factor when you have over a week off. Maybe 3 or 4 days is a different story, but trying to find your rhythm against a team that is focusing their defense on stopping you is part of the equation with the postseason.
And again, his rusty performance is still a game-changing performance. And I think, that first series, like you said, it took its toll, but hopefully now you can look back, see maybe what you could have done differently to avoid some of that rust. I think we're going to see a much sharper performance, and then you take in the mentality of just how big this series is, the hype around it. I think he's ready to deliver in the moment.
Yeah, it's funny just to hear Shea acknowledge it. A lot of guys kind of downplay it. He's kind of said, it's hard to go a week in between games, especially for a guy like Shea. Like you said, Colby, he's a rhythm player, and we've seen both against Phoenix and against the Lakers, he got better and better as the series went on. Can he avoid that today? I mean, you feel like you're going to kind of probably need full-blown Shea at his best to win this series. Maybe not necessarily every game, but for the most part throughout the series. So it's going to be interesting to see if he can hit the ground running a little quicker than he did, first game of the last couple rounds.
It's a very fine line, the balance of staying sharp and going through a postseason series where every possession is magnified in terms of, the minor details that you're paying attention to, and then you sort of have to, take away that level of focus for a week and then re-engage a week later. I think they would prefer the rest than having 7-game series, so it's kind of a pick your poison type thing. Because of all the rest, though, guys, we're talking about a healthy Jalen Williams, J-Dub, entering this series. He was hurt on April 22nd, Game 2 of the Phoenix Suns series. We kind of had the conversation, what does his availability look like against the Lakers? And, it was kind of made easy for this coaching staff, and now it feels as though J-Dub is 100% ready to go, and they're going to need him in this series 100%.
Absolutely, and the good news is, if they need to play him on a minutes restriction, you've got a guy like A.J. Mitchell who stepped up in his place this last series, so that kind of helps ease any nerves there. But I think, like you said, he was really hitting his stride in those first 2 games of that Phoenix series. So to see him come back in this kind of moment, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in and doesn't miss a beat. I think he's just as ready to come back as fans are, so I look for a fun series out of him.
Well, it's just such a luxury of the fact that they were able to win those series so comfortably. That bought J-Dub all that cushion. I think we all thought he could probably come back in this Lakers series, whether it was those 2 games in L.A. or whatever, if they needed him to, but they didn't need him to. They were in control of the series, were able to get it done in 4 games, buy him that extra week. It's been a month already since that Suns game where he got hurt, so you feel like he's probably been chomping at the bit, ready to get back out on the court, and you got to imagine he's going to be going 100 miles an hour when this thing tips off.
Yeah, some have suggested that maybe you pull him out of the starting lineup because A.J. Mitchell has been so good this postseason. I think you let J-Dub go feel his way back into this series and maybe manage it from there, but it would be a wild move to me to go ahead and make a move like that. In terms of this series, it was 4-1 in favor of the Spurs in the regular season. Mark Daigneault spoke over the weekend about where he sees the most improvement from this San Antonio team.
Just like any really good team. I mean, they're really good on both ends. They've got great top-end talent. They got great depth. They can attack you in a number of ways on both ends of the floor. And so the better the team is, the more you have to be able to handle, and the slighter the margin for error gets. And so it's a team that we have high respect for and understand what they're capable of.
Good on both sides of the ball. I think things that we've already referenced. They're aware of what San Antonio brings in the danger department. And Alex Caruso, very much aware. Listen to his comments about his expectations for what this series is going to be.
A really good team. I think I don't think anybody else won 60 games this year, right? It was just us and them. So, based on records, it was the 2 best regular seasons this year. So we know they're a good team. We have a lot of respect for them, from what they've been able to accomplish. Just preparing for a war. They're a good team. We're a good team. So it's going to be good basketball to be played.
Preparing for a war, first time since 1998, 2 teams with 62 or more wins are meeting in the postseason. That was the Jordan Bulls and the Karl Malone Jazz. I'm expecting a war in this series in terms of the highly competitive basketball we're going to see over the course of however long this thing ultimately goes. All right, on that note, let's check in with our meteorologist, Jack Gerfin, for a Thunder forecast.
Thanks, Colby. And if you are heading downtown or going to the game, as you can see, we've got really warm temperatures, been very breezy out there, very humid. But we do think, though, that here in the metro, the storms should hold off, and they should be generally to our west. As you can see, we do have some interesting things occurring off to our west. Number one, we have a tornado watch that was issued, does not include the metro area, but it goes until midnight tonight for basically the 3 western columns of counties that you can see there, because those are the storms, or that's the areas that we have the dry line in currently. So we are watching our storms. That one that was east of Elk City, that one faded away between Elk City and Weatherford, no longer warned anymore. But by Mangum and Altus, we are still watching a cluster of storms there that have the potential for some very large hail, as well as a chance for some damaging winds. So we'll be keeping an eye on these storms out there this evening, but thankfully these should be out of the metro, and we should not be concerned with the metro until we get to overnight tonight when a cold front comes in. We'll go back now to the guys on the court.
All right, thank you, Jack. We are just over 2 hours away from Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Everyone expecting a slugfest between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the San Antonio Spurs. We'll take a timeout. We're going to take a peek at Thunder in the Park on the other side of the break. Not to mention Chet Wemby, the individual rivalry that everybody wants to see. We'll break it down next here on a special edition of The End Zone. We are just over 2 hours away from Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Oklahoma City Thunder, San Antonio Spurs, along with special guest Josh Calloway, Cameron Johnson. I'm Colby Daniels. Before we jump into the Chet Holmgren-Victor Wembanyama rivalry, what are we thinking of the blue shirts and the T-shirt selection tonight for Game 1?
A little more to them than that last round, I would say. I'm liking it. Classic blue, can never go wrong with that. And feeding into the Loud City part, a little bit of a play there too with the, I think it's fun.
The blue always play. I miss the white. We just have gone away from the whiteout. We've completely abandoned the whiteout. I don't understand what the deal is. They're not going to wear white in any games in this series, at least of the first 4.
I mean, does that guarantee that they won't have a whiteout in terms of the T-shirts, though?
Not necessarily, but that'd be kind of weird. The Spurs will
maybe
wear white
maybe they're saving the whiteout for like a Game 5 or a Game 7 scenario, which we clearly haven't even come close to.
I would settle for the stripe. Give me the stripe in Game 2, and I'll live with it.
I do love the whiteout, though.
I know.
Inside the arena,
It's
a great look. I'm a big fan of the blue, but mixing in the whiteout is a solid win in my book. All right, let's talk about this Chet Wemby rivalry, because in terms of 2 individual players, not only in the entire NBA, but certainly in terms of like young and up and coming stars, these guys have been rivals for a long time. And I think maybe in terms of the way Wemby perceives this rivalry versus the way Chet perceives the rivalry, there is a certain level of maybe dislike, but regardless, I think we're all captivated by any scenario where they get matched up on each other.
It's one thing when you have a rivalry between 2 teams that are very good, very similar, but you throw in a rivalry, so to speak, between 2 of the star players, it just takes it to a whole nother level. It's fun to watch both of these players. They're both good when not playing against each other, but you can tell they both take their effect on one another when they're on the floor together. So I think it's going to be really fun to watch that rivalry take shape in a playoff environment.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the way it is. These 2 guys are connected. I don't know if it's because they're both 7-footers, whatever the reason may be. They've been put in the same box together for the last couple of years, and it's pretty clear, like, Wemby likes to go at Chet any chance he gets. Chet tries to downplay it, but I think, inside him, you put it with truth serum, he really wants to hold his own in this series and at least go toe-to-toe with Wemby, right? This is a big moment. I think of any one player in this series, Chet's probably got the most to gain from like a stature and the way he's talked about across the league standpoint. If he can hold his own and kind of go bar for bar a little bit with Wemby in this series, that would do a lot for him. And so it's a fun storyline within the series for sure.
I think there's also something to be said for the fact that Wemby is the guy in San Antonio, the face of the franchise, the guy they're building around. Chet, while I think is one of the most elite players obviously in the NBA, he is more within, I think, a team concept rather than being in a starring role. And so maybe that plays a factor into how they view the rivalry. But I think in terms of intensity, you would like to see a little bit more from Chet individually in that rivalry in this series, and we'll see ultimately how it plays out. All right, we got to take another timeout because last night Shai Gilgeous-Alexander became a 2-time NBA MVP, the 14th player in NBA history to go back-to-back on the MVPs. So we got to hear from Shea and take you to the scene last night at the Thunder practice facility. Along with Josh Calloway and Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. We're counting you down to Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Welcome back inside the Paycom Center, just over 2 hours away from tip-off, counting you down to Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. It is getting hyped inside the arena, and I'm sure outside it is getting hyped as the Thunder and the Spurs get ready for battle. Paige Orr is at Thunder in the Park. Paige, what's happening outside the arena? Okay, we will catch up with Paige momentarily. I mean, look, the traffic around the arena, the hype, the buzz, this is, I think, the hype that we all wanted in the previous series, but competitively, I think it just failed to bring that out of maybe NBA fans collectively. That is not the case with this series whatsoever.
No, not at all. Like we've said all night long already, it's the series that has been coming for months now. It's the one everyone has been looking at, and I think just like you said, competitively, these are two teams that really are able to go toe-to-toe with one another. You've got the argument that San Antonio has OKC's numbers, so I mean, you put all that together, and in one of the loudest environments in the NBA in a playoff series, yeah, it's asking for that hype.
I thought the crowds have been pretty good. Game 2 against the Lakers, I thought it was ratcheted up a little bit. But it's also had the feeling of, like, been waiting for this. Yeah. Like, there's been building toward this and waiting for a series that really feels like it could go either way. And I think you can feel it in the city all the last few days. It's going to be something tonight, I feel.
And you pair that with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander winning his second MVP last night. It was a terrific scene. Friends, family, Thunder, personnel. Shai's son running around, which I think brought a smile to everybody's face. But it's pretty crazy when you start to think about the things that Shai has accomplished and where he has already, I think, put himself on the all-time list of NBA players. He made it a point to thank a lot of different groups, and the Thunder fan base was a specific group that he had to point out.
If you play college basketball, the fans are like up cheering all game. Nobody comes late because they have stuff to do. Like, nobody's comes late on purpose in their outfit to show off. Like, it's basketball, and that's all it is. And it's amazing. And then I really, really, really knew they were real when we sucked for like 3 years and they didn't go anywhere. That's when I realized they really love us and we're really part of this city. And I'm glad they've been able to have a little fun as we had.
I knew they were real when we sucked for 3 years and they kept showing up. I immediately looked over to Sam Presti and Mark Daignault, and they got a chuckle out of that. Everybody, I think, that went through that stretch of the rebuild, you never know how long a rebuild's going to take. And for the Thunder fan base to stick by this team and for it to turn around so quickly, obviously, is a big part of the Thunder story.
Yeah, it's you see everything that has taken place. The fans really have been a big part of that. I mean, you look at the team coming back from away games, away series. The fans are out there into the late hours of the night, early hours of the morning. And you look around the arena when this place fills up. They are kind of an added member of this team, and they have been crucial to their success. And I imagine they'll play a big role in crunch time in this series.
Yeah, it's just nice to see for Shai the faith rewarded. Obviously, when he signed the extension, there was talk around the league, like, are they going to be able to put a winner around him? Like, he signed that big deal to stay there. He believed in the vision of it, and obviously it's more than paid off. A couple MVPs, a championship last year, and a shot at another one this year. It's just been cool to see him progress and get better, become kind of one of the big faces of this state, not just sports, but just period. And obviously 2 MVPs. He's a lockdown, stone cold Hall of Famer. I mean, you win 2 MVPs, You're going to the Hall of Fame, so it's pretty cool.
And his Thunder teammates are reaping the rewards. It was Rolexes last year, trench coats and watches this year. Take a listen to what the trench coats are all about.
Good question, Tim. My teammates are very fashionable guys, and I figured I'd help them out a little bit with the Burberry trench coat, and they look great, and I'm glad they all fit, except for Chet's. Chet, we got to extend Chet's, but we'll figure his out. Oh, he's right here, sorry. My bad, Chet. I apologize. You're going to get 2, don't worry.
There you go, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 2-time NBA Most Valuable Player. Along with Josh Callaway and Cameron Johnson, I am Colby Daniels. We're counting you down to Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals, the Thunder and the Spurs. We'll take a look at this series from the Spurs side of things on the other side of the break. You're watching special edition of The End Zone. We are getting closer and closer to tip-off Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals. Isaiah Joe, Kenrich Williams, a couple of the Thunder players warming up. I know I saw Stephon Castle from San Antonio already going through his warm-up. It's that time of the show. We've been counting this thing down for the last week. We finally found out the Thunder's opponent Friday night. I've had goosebumps multiple times talking about this series and what it might be. So, Josh, we'll start with you. How do you see this thing playing out?
Guys, I'm feeling bold. I think the Thunder, they're just a machine. They're playing really well. They're rested. They're at full strength. The Spurs have not been here yet. I think they're a year early, kind of like the Thunder 2 years ago in 2024. They still need their Ihart and their Caruso. That'll come, I'm sure. I think they're a year early. I like the Thunder in 5 in this series, in 5. I think they win the 2 here. San Antonio gets 1 at home, and then Thunder finish it up here.
That is bold.
The only thing that would surprise me with this series is a sweep. I think it can go either way. Ultimately, I think that Oklahoma City, they haven't been sleepwalking, so to speak, through these first 2 rounds, but I think that the mental hype and the excitement around this series in particular, that's going to wake them up. I think we're going to see a much sharper version. That said, I think San Antonio is still going to make it really tough. I went back and forth on 6 or 7. I could see it going either way, but I'm going to go with 7, the exact opposite of you here.
I think a lot of things have changed in this series from what we saw in the regular season back in December and January. A.J. Mitchell is a much bigger factor for the Thunder than he was then. Dub was coming off an injury and hadn't quite come back all the way. He's healthy. I think he's going to be a big part of this series. Ultimately, San Antonio is good in all the places that the Thunder usually are able to exploit with other teams, so that negates some of their advantage. But I think the advantage that they can't exploit is the Thunder's, I think, championship experience. That's the difference. Thunder in 6, and it all gets underway very shortly. Game 1 tonight, Western Conference Finals. We'll see you after the game.